Namaste, it's Sahara Rose, and welcome back to the Highest Self podcast, a place where we discuss what makes you your soul's highest evolvement. If it is your first time listening, welcome. It is so lovely to have you here. And if you are here every week, twice a week, I love you. How has your 2019 been? It has been a crazy, epic, beautiful, blissful, difficult year. It's been all of the things. It's been complete duality. And that's what happens as we grow. We see how beautiful things are, how expansive things are. Then we could also see how challenging they can be. And to have one alongside the other, that's really what this human experience is all about. It's not just about escaping. It's not just about, staying in your comfort zone because that feels good, but it's also about looking within and looking at your blind spots and going into them, because that is where the real growth happens. And I shared on my Instagram recently about how, a lot of spiritual teachers talk about following the path of least resistance and following just, what is there, accept things as they are. And I actually believe that that's not the case, that we shouldn't accept things as they are, but really the whole purpose of this human experience is so we don't accept things. We say, I'm not going to repeat my ancestral baggage. I am not going to repeat this childhood trauma that I'm repeating in different circumstances. I'm not going to accept the conditions I was born into, the lifestyle, beliefs, etc. So I believe that there is a lot of power in standing in your truth and sometimes following the path of most resistance. Sometimes your ego is the most afraid of the thing that is the most expansive for you. And that is exactly what you need to grow. So I'm definitely going to do another podcast on that. But I do want you to just keep this in the back of your mind as we close off this year, because sometimes that thing that's going to bring you to your highest self, especially in this new decade of 2020, is the thing that you may feel the most resistance around. And that may be, learning about business. That may be a breakup. That may be standing up for yourself or setting boundaries with someone or moving or whatever it is. And your ego may have a lot of resistance around it because it's so used to things as they are. But if we just completely accept, I guess that's a path to some kind of happiness, but not true happiness, because it's living in an illusion. I think when we say, no, enough is enough. With my own mother, of being in a country where there is a revolution happening and all the schools are shut down, which is the Iranian Revolution. And she would have had to get married to an older man and not be educated and essentially give up her life. And she could have easily just said, oh, I accept things as they are. This is just the country I live in. This is the revolution. This is the way that things are going to be. But the fact that she didn't accept that, the fact that she said, I'm willing to literally risk my life to flee the country and, cross the border and hitchhike to Europe and get asylum in a country that I don't know the language and I don't know a single person, and get a job even though I don't even know how things work. And, there's so much that she felt resistance to, that all of us feel resistance to. But if she hadn't gone through that journey, she would have met my dad. I would not be here. You would not be listening to this. So that ripple effect of when you do follow that path of sometimes most resistance that is taking you to your highest truth, that allows other people to also take that path. So I'm not saying always do the thing of the most resistance. I'm not saying always do the thing of the least resistance. What I am inviting you to is to see what would take you closest to your overall truth, your highest point of expansion. And that may be something you're feeling resistance around. That may be the scariest option right now, or it might be the easiest, the thing that you are resisting because maybe it feels really good and you don't feel like you deserve it. It's going to always be different. And that's the thing with spirituality. And that's even with this conversation. It's like there are so many approaches to everything, and just take the medicine that you need at this time. Follow your truth. And that truth might be go towards the resistance, go away from the resistance, whatever that is for you, only your soul will know that. And that's, again, why it comes down to knowing the differentiation between the voice of the ego and the voice of the highest self, because the ego might tell you stories of it's not safe, don't go there, you're going to get hurt, it's a risk, things are fine just as they are, keep going with it. But your highest self might say, if you don't do this, you're always going to regret it. If you don't do this, you'll never become who you were meant to. So listen to that. Now, this episode was done in a complete state of least resistance. And again, it shows the beauty, but we also talk about the resistances that come up. So I called up my friend Heather. It was like a Monday afternoon, and I was just feeling like I wanted to be in conversation. You know those feelings? Like, I had a day that I was like on a lot of podcasts and stuff, and I just felt like I wanted to keep talking. I felt like there was stuff bubbling up inside of me. So I'm like, hey, are you free for a podcast right now? And she's like, sure. So we literally just picked up the phone, got on a Zoom call, and recorded it. And that is this episode. So in this episode, the first half of it is very human. We talk about what is like really going on with us from a human perspective. And a big theme that we talk about is inspiration versus imitation, and how with social media, people are sharing themselves, sharing their ideas, etc. But then that opens up this whole realm of people imitating others or getting inspiration. And what is that fine line between the two? How can we be inspired by someone, but also not copying them, not trying to hold onto their identity because we feel like it looks good for them, but maybe it's not our identity. So we talk about this, interesting conversation that is happening in the social media space right now, and also just the fear around many of us that we're afraid of sharing our best ideas on social media because we're afraid of people taking them. So we talk about all of these type of things in the first part of the episode. And then we get into our own fears of like, what are we afraid of right now? Like, what is showing up for us? What are we working through? And both of us had fears on very similar topics, really the same topic, but we had different perspectives and kind of different sides of the fear. And that conversation is around doing and being. And I think it's an eternal question that all spiritual seekers have, is how do we balance this doing state that we're creating our dharma and we're putting out our best work and we're going into the path of most resistance because our highest truth is on the other side, and also that path of flow and ease and letting it come to us and the feminine of pulling in. How do we have the balance of the two? And both of us have kind of come from different sides of the spectrum and both learning from either side. So we share about that. And then we both share what is exciting for us. And Heather shares about the galactic beings that she's very interested in, such as the Lyran race. We talk about some of the other Pleidians, etc. So if you're very interested in all of the galactic beings, you're going to love that part. So again, this conversation is free flowing. It's fluid. You're going to feel like you're just sitting in the room with us, because that's essentially what you are doing. And I'm so excited to share this with you. Without further ado, let's welcome Heather of Activation Vibration to the Highest Self podcast. And before we get started, check out these brands that make Highest Self podcast possible. This episode is brought to you by Four Sigmatic. Four Sigmatic is an incredible mushroom elixir company. I proudly drink their elixirs every single day. My favorite is their chai mix. It is insanely delicious. I quit chocolate cold turkey, and what helped me was drinking this chai mix every day. And best of all, they use stevia to sweeten it, and there's no sugars like the chai lattes you'll find at Starbucks or wherever else. And the mushrooms are really good for balancing your hormones, helping heal adrenal fatigue, healing your body on an adaptogenic level. So adaptogens really kind of relate to what your body needs. So if you are high stress, it will bring you down. If you need more energy, it will bring you up. And that's what's so amazing about adaptogens. They adapt to your body, and mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms, have a lot of adaptogenic properties. So you can head over to their website, foursigmatic.com, foursigmatic.com/Sahara. I have a little shop up there with my favorite Four Sigmatic products. So you can try it out, and you can also get 15% off any Four Sigmatic product using the code Sahara. If you're listening to this podcast, I don't even need to tell you how good turmeric is for you, but I am going to tell you how you can take your turmeric game up a notch. So I've been drinking Vodam Tea's new turmeric line, and they have these 4 teas that I've been rotating on a daily basis, which I want to share with you. We're about to get a little Ayurvedic nerdy right now. So in the morning, I'll have the turmeric spice tea, which is really good for the digestive system, getting things stimulated, waking up the Agni. After lunch, I'll have the turmeric ginger tea, which is really good for digestion and enhances pitta, which is highest in the middle of the day. At night, I'll have the turmeric ashwagandha tea, which relieves stress, just gets my body ready to sleep. And then right before I sleep, I'll have the turmeric moringa tea, which acts as a natural laxative because, you gotta detoxify. So I love these 4 teas together, and they actually come in the new turmeric line that Vodam is offering. So head over to vodamteas.com, VAHDAM teas.com, and use coupon code Sahara for 20% off. Again, that's vodamteas.com with coupon code Sahara for 20% off. Are you calling in your spiritual soul sisters? I'm talking about those people that will support you on your journey towards becoming your highest self. Well, doors are opening back up for Rose Gold Goddesses, my Sacred Sisterhood collective with community, content, events, and so much more. We're going to be kicking it off with my absolutely free 5-day Rose Gold Goddess Challenge, where we embody 5 goddess archetypes and then inviting you to join this community. So many people have met their best friends, business partners, and healers that have supported them on their path because frankly, we can't do this alone. We need community. Think of this like your spiritual gym membership. We have my Awaken Your Powers video in there, my talks at Google, Discover Your Dharma course, and so much more available for you for a very low monthly cost. So if you want to join in on this and join us on the free Rose Gold Goddess Challenge, head over to rosegoldgoddesses.com. Again, that is rosegoldgoddesses.com, and I am so excited to meet you in there. Welcome back to the Highest Self podcast, Heather. It's so good to have you here.
Oh, so divine to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
So we were just texting about our lives, and sporadically I'm like, do you want to do a podcast episode right now? And she's like, yes. And we just did one, and we have no agenda whatsoever. And we're just allowing what is meant to be to come through. So I don't even know what this episode is about. Like, this is pure
divine alignment.
Yeah. This is pure surrender to the divine feminine, not having
intuitive
an agenda.
Inspiration. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, the first question that I have to ask you is, what makes you your highest self?
I would definitely have to say it changes in every moment, but I think that is the ability to evolve and change and shift and adapt to every moment at any given time, and to honor the moment that is present and what I'm feeling and all divine existence.
I love that. And it's so funny you said that. So last night I was literally having this debate with myself in my head because, okay, everyone's talking about the divine feminine right now, and the new way is just to completely go with the flow. And I'm such a proponent of that. But this part of me is still like looking at the times in my life that I like created something amazing, like writing Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda or, anything else. There was an element of push involved. Like, had I not had that deadline, I probably wouldn't have written it before, because I had tried to write a book on Ayurveda before, which took me 2 years. And I was just kind of like going whenever I was inspired, and it took 2 years. Whereas because I had these 2 months, I got it done. So part of me is like, well, if I completely surrender to what's in flow, not planning anything, just seeing where it takes me, I have to also be okay with not creating as much, which I'm kind of not okay with. So I'm like, okay, do I like pretty much move to Jamaica and just live that life? Or do I, which I know you've wanted
semi-lived
times and lived. Or do I create things, but also have to plan and schedule. So I feel like you're going through this too. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely, it's like that, it's really that like sweet spot right in the middle, because when we've brought in this like concept of the flow and flexibility and adaptability, and that is so necessary, but actually a key component of that flexibility and for it to be able to express freely, it actually requires some structure. And that is that like divine masculine energy. And that is like the necessary synergy that has to be present in order for both to really like be themselves. So like having that structure, having that time where it was like, oh, okay, I have this deadline. It's time to get this out. It was like, all right, creativity, like flow and abundance in this space.
And do you think that, we have friends who don't plan anything? Do you think that we can like create things and build a business and be part of this society with being completely in the flow, no schedule, no plan, just allowing what is meant to come through at that moment?
I think that there probably is a reality where that's possible, like a dimension where that's possible, but with the way the current structure in which all things operate here, and though things are shifting, I don't think that it's completely possible here just yet. And like, I'd like to believe it to be so eventually, just like freely going with each moment and like not having to have any requirements, which like for me, like even just in saying like what makes me my higher self as like being able to adapt in that way, it's also like adapting to what each moment presents, like, oh, this is happening now. This is like something that you're having to do now. And it's like, okay, how can I flow and honor how I'm feeling in that moment, where I know what you're referring to as like, where there's like no planning at all whatsoever, never any scheduling. And I'm not sure that that's really possible just yet, but maybe it is for some. And actually maybe they're the pillars of frequency holding that energy to like make it more possible here on earth. But I've just observed, at least for me, and it could be that that's like people who are just totally like vata and just like literally just like, oh wow, this happened to manifest physically at this moment, but I'm mostly like residing up in this space. But yeah, I feel like for me personally, I also like, I have a little to-do list that I like write down, and I like, so I don't forget my things that I have to do. And like, I flow with that to-do list. It's like, okay, which one like feels the best right now? And it's like, I get all the things done, but it's like when they feel good.
I love that. And yeah, when I was thinking about it, I was like, that made total sense back in the day when we lived as a village, that you didn't have to make a plan with your friend. Like you could just walk over to their hut and kick it, Whereas today
Right.
we're all so separate from each other that, if we want to plan something, we have to plan it ahead of time. But oftentimes what happens is at that moment, you don't feel like seeing that person. I mean, how many times have we been like, oh, let's hang tonight. And you're like, oh shit, I hope that person cancels, because it was not meant to be in that moment, but it's almost like we have no choice because we just have to make it work.
Right. Yeah. And we like all live by calendars. Like every device, every like establishment has like a calendar on the wall, and it's like a time, a clock always. So that's like what we're living by now. That's like this current reality.
And it's interesting because like I never used calendar schedules. Like I'm still not a big schedule person. Like I'll maybe put something that I have to do with someone else, like a podcast, because I have to be there at that time, but I don't really schedule things for myself. I'll have a to-do list, but again, I'm very flowing with it. And I kind of like this reality for myself. And I feel like I just get done what I need to get done in a more intuitive way. Whereas if I'm like, okay, go on a walk 4:15, that's going to feel forced and I'm going to experience resistance.
Yeah, no, I totally feel that. And like, it's being able to flow within the supported structure. It's like that. It's like your intuitive guidance in a sense, where it's like, okay, I have the clear knowing of like what my goal, my like intention is, and I'm going to allow it to align as it's meant to.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So we were just talking about social media and how a lot of us right now are just going through massive shifts massive transitions. And because of that, I think a lot of people are trying on new personas, new topics, and a lot of that is great. Like, for example, I've been posting a lot about the divine feminine and sexuality and sensuality. And I don't think I'm going to like totally transition my career to only talk about these things. It's just kind of what's hot for me right now. And I'm seeing a lot of people going through these transitions. What do you think's happening?
I think that this is like a major time of transition for everyone. And so through this space, we're all expanding in different ways. So it really is like we are trying out new versions of ourselves. And so we are doing so by what we are influenced by. And social media is our main influence now. It's like our TV, and it's not fictional characters, it's real life people. So everyone is kind of like sharing and exchanging different like styles, ideas, information, like themes, teachings, missions, purposes, like all these different things, like ways of creation. And it's so beautiful and powerful because it's allowing us to share and merge different ideas and philosophies and cultures and information and really become one people as we are. But at the same time, when it's in like smaller communities and in smaller places, it can get a little bit like, oh, whoa, wait, that's exactly what I said, or that's exactly what I'm doing. And kind of seeing like people wanting to kind of like imitation energy in a way. So it's like a very interesting little concept that we're seeing. So yeah, I think that it's just with everyone trying out the different versions of self, it's really going to be like what is true and real for everyone is what's going to really resonate and stick. So it's just interesting through this time, everyone kind of like expanding and changing, and really that it's about like us just sharing the information, I think.
Yeah, I see like both sides to it. I see the side of people just being curious into new things and sharing. And I think that we all take in so much content that we don't even really know like what is our thought, what we read, what someone else wrote. It's all just kind of like created this one big soup. And it's really hard. You know, back in the day, you read something from a book and you're like, okay, this is a quote from Eckhart Tolle. Like that's his quote. Whereas today, where we're just reading thousands of these quotes every single day, that it just creates like this one internet thought, especially in the spiritual community, that it's really hard to be like, oh, this came from Heather and this came from this. So in a way, it's great because we're able to take the ego, the person out of it and just see it for the thought that it is. But the other side is there's a lot of imitation. And there's a lot of copying and there's a lot of plagiarizing and not giving that person credit, because though truth is universal, it's still coming through that person's vessel. And that requires a level of acknowledgement. And it happens to me all the time, people taking my graphics, my quotes, cropping my name out of it, or like creating exactly the same kind of content that I do. And, you know, I'm honored that I'm able to inspire them, but it does also trigger me because it's taken me a lot of work to create that, to even get to the level that I'm able to come up with that. And then for someone to just be like, oh, that's cool. And just to like, you know, as if I take your idea for an invention and I'm selling the duplicate of it. Well, you did all the work to get there, but it's also, you know, my ego, who has a right to feel that way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because like, the ego does serve as a purposeful sense of individualism, where it's like individualization, where it's like, yes, we are all one, but at the same time, we are individual versions of that expression. And yeah, like I really resonate with that, where it's like literally captions being copied and reposted and like acted as if like, and having someone else being the one who said it. And it's like, someone else being credited, and it's like, oh yeah, it's such an interesting concept with like being like, okay, well, it's just the message. Like I guess that like though this was like channeled through me, like it is about the message. So it's like it's been an interesting dance with that with my ego personally too, where it's been like my ego's like, hey, wait, but like we should get credit for that, because like again, yeah, it was hard to come up with that, but at the same time, it's like it's about the message. So maybe we just like send some love on it and be like, it's recognized, hello, and just send it love.
Yeah, I think that we're at this kind of like point that everyone wants to be the author, the influencer, the person who's credited for it. And a lot of it is great. We want to be seen, we want to be out of the shadows, but people are not honoring their own wisdom that goes through them and saying, oh, well, this is working with other people, so I'm going to cookie cutter that because I can see it's working and that's going to give me the validation that I want, even though it's not coming from me. I mean, we've seen major influencers whose entire careers are based off of plagiarized work. And, you know, and for some reason in society, we're like, oh, well, it's okay. Like that happens. And it's not okay to take someone's work and not credit them for it. But I think a lot of people are doing it in a less obvious way, in a way. It's very hard to blur the lines between inspiration and imitation.
Yes, I feel that. Wow. Yeah, my heart is like resonating so deeply with this, like, because it really is, it blocks off when it is just like imitation and it's used as like an outline for their translation. It really does inhibit them from accessing the full potential of their own creativity and their own unique version of the expression, which is their divine purpose. Like my heart was like, wow, yes, that's it. That's why like it's blocking off. It's like that's why it feels like, wait, that's not the reason why I express it. Like it's not for you to just repeat it and like look to profit in some way, whether it is like materially or energetically off of it. It's to inspire you into your own version of the expression and creation, and for you to really actually access that source within you. Because when it is just imitated, that is blocked off. It actually does just put them in a completely different version of it's like generator mode, essentially, where it's like circulation of the energy as opposed to like, oh, actually like receiving it, planting it, and allowing it to blossom and then like flourish in their own way.
Absolutely. So true. And so what do you think this means? Like I've heard with yourself, with multiple of my friends who do coaching, one-on-one coaching, that sometimes you give your all to someone and then that person could take that wisdom and in a way, like they feel like it was given to them by, you know, their coach, healer, therapist, whatever, but then they're sharing it themselves. Like, for example, a friend of mine does coaching and she was really working with this girl a lot. And that girl wrote a book. And like most of what she said were things that this coach had told her. But it almost was like, well, that's how you coach me. Like those became my thoughts.
Wow.
So what do you think about that? Has this happened to you? How do you navigate this?
Yeah. Wow. This is so significant. See, it's so interesting because like even in many of like the spiritual teachers or just the motivational speakers nowadays, a lot of them have been seeded from previous teachers. And most of the ones that are like most profound and like popular are usually the ones who are expressing it and translating it with their own unique flair and like in their own expression. But yeah, I have experienced that where I've like channeled for people and they're like much larger accounts, and like literally what I've said to them, like the version of like literally word for word becomes like a video or a post or something that ends up being profited off of like majorly, or like into some type of creation or like a program. And it's like, okay, well, yes, like that is the energy that was translated. Like I understand the potency of it. So it's like, okay, wow, that's like, so part of me is just so grateful and so happy and just like, yes, infinitely. But at the same time, it's like, I see how it's like, oh, that was given to you. Like, but yeah, it really is just infinite. So I've had to personally, like, I've experienced the little like flare where it's like, oh, whoa, like that's word for word, like what I've said, like, and now it's a program, like, or wow, this is this, like that, or that was my idea. That was something like, it does like just remind me to act quickly, I guess. But that's less in flow. So yeah, I've really just like sent it love every time. And now I can see it as just like the message being spread and it being able to reach more people, and really just trusting the infinite abundance that always is, and knowing like always provided for.
I mean, I remember before I had like written my first book, when I was still writing it, I was so like torn into what I should include. Like, should I include like the actual like suggestions and meal plans for the doshas, or is that like giving away too much? And I had so much fear, and I was actually like kind of scarcity around how much should I give out, because I was so afraid of people stealing my work. And for those of you who are listening who maybe haven't put out content yet, but one day you want to, and you have this fear of like, oh, what if I put my best work out there, then someone else is just going to take it, I'm going to be left with nothing. Just know that you can put your best work out there and you're just going to come up with more. Like, the infinite source is you, and no one can copy you. They can copy something that came out of your mouth, but it's not going to hold that same potency and that same vibration, because it's not coming from your vessel and your experience. And by the time it came out of your mouth, it's not even going to have that same resonance
frequency
with you anymore. Yeah, like something else is going to be fresher and hotter, and you just have to keep honoring that and keep moving with that flow.
Yes, definitely.
So good.
I think that I have to share it, the little phrase.
Oh yeah, share it.
Yes, for those, because that's like very inspiring, just knowing that like energy is infinite, creation, expression, inspiration, motivation is infinite, and always knowing that and connecting to the source, and just like perceiving all as a reflection and motivation to keep going, and that things are working and resonating and the message is getting out there. And yeah, the little like phrase to always remember is, one can take my words and claim them as their own, but one can never duplicate the codes that I hold in my bones. So knowing that you are true and unique and divine to your own nature, always infinitely.
Oh my goddess, that is the best. Can you just say that again one more time?
One can take my words and claim them as their own, but one can never duplicate the codes I hold in my bones.
So true. And we just have to keep sharing, and we have to keep being that light. Think about how many people have like quoted Gandhi, right? It's like, Gandhi's not like, yo, you better credit me on that, right? It's just like, they just turn out like words, but also it doesn't make you inferior to give someone credit for their work. It doesn't make you stupider to add that person's name on the end. And I think exactly, like, people want it to seem like it's coming from themselves, because they feel like, oh, if I'm just quoting other people, then who am I? And it's like, no, it's awesome. Like, so many great content creators are constantly quoting other people. Like, Wayne Dyer was constantly quoting people all the time. We weren't like, oh, why aren't you coming up with your own shit? Like, he had his own shit too. And he also seeked inspiration from a lot of different people.
Right. But that allowed him to really like express and translate his own version of it, because it's like, when I feel like when you credit something, it's like you like gain that master's like support, if that makes sense. So it makes it even more potent and powerful.
So true. Okay. And this is another topic I've been really diving into recently. The concept of like spirituality, and how our Western society wants direct access to things, right? Like, we want to know the mantra, we want to know the prayer, we want to just do it right now. We don't want to have to go to Gurukul, which was like what they called like the spiritual schools. We don't want a guru for sure. In fact, most people are against gurus because of the way that so many gurus have shown up in Western society of taking advantage of people. And I totally resonate with that, of like, I want direct access. I don't want to have to work through someone else to have access to spirit. And I also see the misuse of energy. I see people who, hear about Goddess Kali and start like listening to Kali mantras all the time, and their house burns down because they weren't using the energy the right way. So can we just discuss how we can like dive into spiritual practices without someone giving us permission, but at the same time know that we need to be students, and there are reasons why there were gurus and teachers, because these certain energies need to be honored in certain ways?
Yes, I think that is like so significant to this paradigm that we are and have shifted into, where we are becoming the teachers, we are the gurus, and we are realizing, wow, this source I can access within myself. And with that, it's like the whole thing that there ever were gurus that like guided access to this source ever existed, like kind of goes out the window. And I think that that does need to be acknowledged. And the purpose of that is because, yeah, these energies are powerful, and there is a certain formula, a certain alchemy that needs to be utilized and cultivated when, like, yeah, going to these goddesses, going to these gods, and also like accessing our power. Like, I have so many clients, people like, I did like Kundalini yoga every single day, and like my Kundalini like exploded, and this, all this happened, or like I was doing these third eye meditations and now I can't stop seeing like spirits or this. And this is not to scare anyone, because actually all of these things led them to harnessing their gifts and actually turning them into like powerful, beneficial, helpful things. But it's like, yeah, and then at the same time, the misuse of the guru energy, where that's why I personally have never had a guru, and I have never resonated with that either, because I realized that I could find it within myself, and I resonated with that more from the start. But yeah, it has been this process of learning how to really approach these different energies and work with these different worlds and dimensions. And it's because spirituality is becoming so like almost like a fad, but it's like a good fad, because it's like, actually, yes, this will help you like access your true inner self if you do it right. But it's also at the same time like causing people to kind of just dive into it without fully really like checking out the horizon prior, if that makes sense. It's like kind of just jumping off the cliff. It's like, oh wait, we can fly? Oh my God, I'm just jumping off the cliff. And it's like, yes, but you do have to prepare your wings and like actually figure out how to use them first. But like then, yes, you can fly.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a huge thing, especially in like the Vedic lineage. It's very guru centric. And the word guru just means that person that illuminates the path. So I think if you look at it in that context, a person who illuminates the path, like there's no stigma to this. This is just someone who is giving you guidance. Like in a way, you and I are gurus. We are illuminating the path to different people. However, neither of us would ever call ourselves a guru, because we are seeing it with the paradigm of how it's being used almost as a means of control, and often turning into exploitation.
And elitism.
And elitism. But in itself, that's not what it means. It's like a spiritual teacher. And the Vedic lineage really has this, because the mantras are not to be used by, not all mantras are meant to be used by everyone. So something like Om can be used by everyone. Bij mantras, simple mantras can be used by everyone. When we get into specific goddesses, when we get into specific vibrations, not everyone's being can hold all of these different vibrations. We have to kind of work ourselves up, and also know that we're supposed to resonate with certain ones and not others. And that's what I've been learning so much of from having, my meditation teacher right now, Chandresh, is I would just go on YouTube and just look up, Ganesh mantra, I want to block obstacles, this mantra. And now I've learned, like, don't listen to any mantra, because first of all, if a mantra is overly used, like if it has like a bazillion plays on YouTube, it doesn't hold that same resonance. That pathway has been walked upon so many times. This is why there were always people who are giving you a mantra according to your unique energies, because that was a vibration unique to you. If we're all saying the same mantras, it's not going to carry that same potency. But the other side of it is, do most people have access to someone to give them their own mantra? Is that person truly a clear vessel? Like, how can we have this in our society, when also the other side of it is a lot of people feel like, spirituality should be free. So a lot of people don't want to pay for a meditation teacher or spiritual teacher, etc. So it creates this interesting paradigm that we want all the wisdom, we want all the knowledge, we don't know who to trust, we don't want to pay for it. So we're just kind of stuck self-healing, and that can work sometimes, but sometimes can create more harm.
Yeah, there's literally so much like so much, like, just in terms of like the hilarious paradigm that we've created, where it's like we're like needing to co-create and connect and dive deep within ourselves at the same time. And it's, yeah, I think that it's literally like the chaos is just bringing all to the surface so that we can like bring awareness to all of this. Because yeah, like with the mantras, I think that that is so important, like knowing that, yeah, not all mantras are like actually set up and energetically programmed to be repeated and chanted like by everyone all the time. And there are like intentions set into these mantras and like into these invocations. And like, yeah, just even for example, like I created a mantra, and that one specifically, like I energetically set up so that it, when repeated, was charged energetically and like creating more light and like connecting to like light grids around all around Earth. But there are mantras that, like, I just got back from India recently and was learning about, yeah, certain mantras that, like, especially these Kali mantras, like when you repeat them often, they can literally like ignite like fires, like out of nowhere, like even within your body as well as externally. Like actually, I've heard stories. So yeah, that's just such a powerful point. But I think that like it's important to do your own research, really. Like I'm a big fan of intuitive research, where it's like if you resonate with someone and it's like, whoa, I really like how they express things, maybe it's similar to you, maybe you see certain reflections, or maybe like it is familiar with the person that you know, and you feel called to listen to them and work with them, then do so until you no longer feel called. But I also am a big fan of doing your own intuitive research, where like just observing things that pop into your head throughout the day, or things that catch your interest, and things that literally appear in your reality. And oh wow, this came up a lot, like this specific food came up a lot, like, oh, I have been eating that a lot. Whoa, people are saying it causes inflammation. Whoa, look it up on the internet. Whoa, this is known for causing inflammation. Like doing that. And then like, oh wow, people are talking about angels. Wow, people are talking about Christ codes lately. Wow, or Christ consciousness. Like, is that related to Jesus? Oh, how interesting. Do your own research. Like, wow, this could be Christ consciousness coming to me, angels coming to me. Like we actually can, like, we've structured this reality to where we can really like access infinite amounts of knowledge in a logical and linear way, if the source channels aren't completely sculpted in a way that the information is directly clear and detailed.
So true. Let's talk adrenal glands. These organs are constantly working to produce hormones, including stress hormones that travel throughout the body. So when they get overtaxed, we feel stressed out and a little run down as a result. So it's really important to provide nourishment for the adrenals. Banyan Botanicals has a supplement that does exactly that. It's called, appropriately enough, Adrenal Nourish, and it's loaded with adaptogens like ashwagandha and tulsi that help you stay energized yet calm throughout your day and sleep at night. Adrenal Nourish is fast acting and can be used throughout the day or even before bed to help with sleep. It's especially supportive during stressful times, so if you have a big move, looming deadline, or just feel low for any reason, give yourself some adrenal nourishment. Save 20% off adrenal nourishment at banyanbotanicals.com/Sahara. Again, you can find that link in my show notes. So last year, when visiting wedding venues in Hawaii, I completely lost my voice. And how was I going to plan my wedding with no voice? Luckily, I came across Beekeeper's Natural Propolis Throat Spray, and it literally saved my life. Made of high-quality bee propolis, which is nature's antibiotic, I was able to get my voice back in no time, which led me to discovering their other products like their hemp honey, brain fuel, and superfood cacao honey, which is amazing. Transmuting. I highly recommend their products to all the bee lovers out there, as they're on a mission to improve people's health while saving the bees. Get 15% off your order at beekeepersnaturals.com/Sahara and use coupon code Sahara at checkout. Again, that is beekeepersnaturals.com/Sahara with coupon code Sahara at checkout. I definitely see both sides to it. I remember when I was doing my TM training, I had so much resistance. Like, I don't want to meditate this way. Like, I want to be free. Like, I want to move. I want to think about my unicorns and my mermaids. And like, that was really showing up. And then also from just like being on my own spiritual path, really honoring like the structure and the teachings and the reason why things were the way that they are, and the potency that they carry that a lot of us don't recognize. We just throw things out for fun, and we don't realize that everything we do, everything we say, all these practices have significance. So I think it's just like this interesting time that we also have access to so many different forms of spirituality. Whereas back in the day, like you grew up in Peru, it was your type of shamanism that was local to you, which may have been different than the tribe next to you. You grew up in India, it was Vedic. You grew up in Chinese, it was Taoist. Whereas now we're able to like pick and choose. Do I want Mary Magdalene? Do I want, Lakshmi? And we're like creating these like new hybrids, right? Like you can eat Mexican food, Thai food, and French food in the same day. And we're doing all these spiritualities and it's awesome. And I love it.
And all their gods too.
Yeah. But I see the other side of like, how do we actually honor these traditions? Because they weren't really all meant to be mixed, but at the same time, they really are all pointing to one.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I feel like, there comes a space where I feel like, because just personally, I do work with different gods and goddesses, but it is very intuitive in the sense where I will either experience something in my external reality where it's like calling me or guiding me to them, or it will usually come like through like my heart or like through an essence where it's like, oh, I remember this. Okay, I need to remember more about this. And I'll kind of just put myself in that frequency so that I can receive more of that information. But it's really interesting just like, thinking about like how to express and explain it, because it really is individual to each person. Because maybe it does work for some people to just work solemnly with one god or one goddess or just like one form of source, and it doesn't work for them to intuitively move through different gods or goddesses, like based on like if that doesn't resonate with them. So it's really just like choosing what resonates with you.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down to like what you feel like is okay. Like, for example, with Ayurveda, I knew a lot of people who felt like, oh, well, Ayurveda is just Indian food. This is the way it's been done and you have to stick to it. And these people are more traditionalists, right? And those people will probably take one form of spirituality and practice it exactly as it is. Like Ashtanga yoga, that's it. And that's awesome. Like we definitely need some people like that. And then there are people who are going to like create booty yoga, which is like tribal dance and this and all these different things. And that resonates with them. And those are more like the visionaries and the trailblazers. Personally, I resonate more with visionary trailblazer. I honor the tradition. I like to learn about them so I know the truth of where they fundamentally come from. But I haven't been like, I am just a Buddhist or I'm just, a Christian. For me, it's very fluid. And everything I do in my life, whether I'm making a recipe or doing a dance, is like a fusion of different things.
Yes. Yeah. And that's so beautiful. And it's so like divine and unique to you. And it's also really beautiful because though we are all like just like connecting all these different like energies and aspects of ourselves and versions of ourselves, because we're always infinitely evolving, the ones that you like specifically choose and the ones that like particularly resonate with you and that you like meld into your little cultivation of essence is unique and it is different than the other cultivations. So yeah, I think that it's like just seeing from like the higher perspective, just like seeing the divinity in all that's like melding and blossoming. Because I'm the same way where I resonate with like a lot of different versions of meditation and yoga. And there are different times in my life where I'm like, literally this year, it's only this type of yoga. I don't know. I absolutely can't do any other type of yoga. And I'm like, I don't think I'll ever do anything again. And then the next year it's like, oh wait, all these different yogas. I need to go to 4 different types, like a week. Like I need to be doing all these different practices. I'm having like, it's all in nature. And then it's like a few months I'm hermiting and I'm like, no, I'm literally internal this whole chapter. So it's all just like ever evolving, and it's just seeing from the outer space like, oh yeah, it's everything, it's all okay, all right.
So true. So what are you vibing with right now? I know you just came back from India, but you're super galactic. Like what's calling you right now?
Wow. Calling me, yeah, just calling. And India, like super magical star race has come in more recently, and they're the lion beings, they're the Lyrans. And if one doesn't necessarily resonate with the perception that there are other existences, energy bodies, consciousnesses existing and residing in other dimensions and parallel realities, then it's kind of like different expressions of source in like cosmic, galactic, futuristic, magical ways. And these beings in particular are again called the Lyrans, and they've just come in more recently for me, and they came in a lot during India. And when I say that, it was less like physical. I have experienced like beings like come as light form in the physical, but for these, they kept coming through. I would wake up in the middle of the night, like finishing conversation with them, and like would see lines everywhere. They'd be mentioned, or someone would send me something, or it was really beautiful. And they represent this energy of like this empowerment, this confidence, this like self-esteem, this knowing, this trust in your true divine inner essence. And I feel like that as a guide, that energy as a guide can really resonate with many at this point, because I feel like this whole past chapter, this like past year, and like even the past like few years for many have been a lot about shadow work and really like deconstructing self so that we can reconstruct in divine order and in purpose alignment. And so this like guidance of God confidence, that's what they're saying, guidance of God confidence energy that is coming in is like a really powerful support that can help like bring people to the remembrance and the truth of who and what they are, and be unwavering in that.
So what do the Lyrans, like, how do they show up? How do we know if we are a Lyran, they're resonating with us?
Yes. Okay. So it can resonate in a sense where it really is what resonates with you. It can be that perhaps the Lyran beings are like these winged, how they've appeared for me are these like winged lions. Sometimes they can be like these white winged lions. Sometimes they can be like these humanoid lion beings with lion heads. And perhaps you have like an awareness in your third eye of your Lyran guide. And maybe that's what resonates with you, and you feel that you receive messages. It could be that you feel that you are like star-seated and stranded from Lyra, which is a solar system that exists in the galaxy and can even be looked up. It truly actually exists, and it existed far, 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 like a long time ago. And so now Lyrans have kind of distributed all around different star systems, and they're here helping us on Earth as well. And perhaps you are star-seated as a Lyran, and maybe you are you have like a lioness or a king lion energy where you're strong and confident, and perhaps like have this roaring type of energy, or even like a Leo energy. When I think of Lyra, I think of like strong confidence, solar plexus, the knowing. Leos, even if you think about astrologically, the Leo energy, the powerful, strong, like unwavering energy in a sense. And of course that manifests in many different forms. So with this, like, if you feel resonant, perhaps also it is that you, after this, start seeing lions everywhere. and they're coming to you now in different ways, or perhaps they have been, or they have your whole life, where they've always just resonated with you and they've been connected to you in some way. And if they do come to you after this, then they're definitely speaking to you. So that's beautiful. And you can basically receive messages if you're not used to receiving messages from guides or angels or other beings. You can really, when you receive something like, oh, whoa, there's a picture of a lion literally right now in front of me, just breathing and kind of like just opening up to see what comes to surface in your mind and practicing that. It's really just presence, and depending on like how you receive, you'll receive in many different ways. It may be a physical, emotional, mental feeling or emotion or knowing, and just open to receive their messages if you are interested.
So are only lions Lyran, or all types of big cats? Because I really resonate with like leopards, and I see leopards in my dreams. Lions don't really show up for me that much.
Totally all cat beings. Yeah. They've just been showing up as like straight lions for me lately. So yeah, like panthers, jaguars, leopards. Yeah, they're all part of the Lyran fam.
Love that. And you definitely have the lioness hair. So I see that for you for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of
made
people.
some hilarious comments.
Yeah, they're like, we made you look like us so you would know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know a lot of people really have this deep feeling that they're not from this planet, that they are, galactic, extraterrestrial, celestial. And can you just, because you know so much about this, and I really don't, because I am not an alien. Like I am, but I'm like, that's just not my thing.
Yeah.
Yet. I think like, honestly, I just feel like the aliens in me, I just like don't want to communicate with them. So they're not coming through. They've been very respectful of that. But I've told you like crazy alien stories because Steven is an alien for sure.
Right.
Communicated with him. So can you tell us about just like the different star seed families, Arcturians, etc.?
Yes. Yeah. So there's many different ones. And like this conversation I could go for, I don't know, 50 hours about the different ones, because there are infinite, and there are many that are out of this star system that I have never heard of, and that I don't know if anyone's ever heard of. Maybe a few beings who have traveled, but yeah, there are infinite amounts. And they essentially, to kind of bring this into like a perspective where one can perceive it from a space where they never have before, essentially, it's kind of like astrology almost, where these different star systems hold these different energies. So like when I think of astrology, essentially I think of the constellations holding the energy of these stories or of these figures, and therefore hold these like imprints of energy. And as it circulates around Earth, as we circulate, as whatever way it actually goes, it imprints different energy based on like where the sun's at. I feel like it like amplifies the energy into the planet, essentially like in accordance to that particular constellation. And so essentially we can think of these star beings and star races in different star systems, like the Pleiadians, which is an actual cluster of stars that exists in our galaxy. And there are star beings called the Pleiadians that are benevolent star beings who are actually helping Earth serve and shift in this new paradigm and shift this mission of bringing more light to Earth and shifting the overall vibration of the planet, and thus all we experience and create and attract here. And they can be perceived in a sense where they are consciousness within a different dimension. So they can communicate and they can be perceived through different dimensions and through the form of alternative realities. And so people can channel them where they receive perhaps the guidance through their mind and through their heart. And that could be really different from each other as well. Perhaps they're experienced physically, where people experience them actually like here on the planet, like coming through and in communion with them, or when they're in meditation, or when they're in the astral realm, when they're sleeping, they have full on lives that they're living with these beings. And I've experienced many of those, as well as had many clients who are currently and who have experienced full, like undeniable, like undoubtable, like realities of this. So the extent to which all things add up, and also just prove the existence of like even the form in which the information is being channeled per star system, per star being, like the way that the message is translated from the Pleidians is going to be different than it is from the Arcturians, who are another star system. And it's said that they reside in one of the highest dimensions, and so they're one of the most evolved species of the galaxy because they've been here the longest. And they are more about, like, for me personally, they work with me more in healing and me and my personal self and on a personal level, whereas the Pleiadians help me with expressing my mission and serving my mission and guiding me on my purpose and just like awakening and activating people. So it's, yeah, literally could go on for light years.
So most people out there are Pleiadians, correct? Like that's the most common humanoid galactic form, right? That's what I've heard.
I would say like that's the most common, yeah, because that's like that would make the most sense. Most people remember that.
Right. And I've heard that they are like, you frequently see them and they're like completely white. They're about a little bit taller than a regular human. And they kind of have like what we would imagine as like Native American type of clothing and textures, but all made of white light. Is this how you have seen them?
Wow. I actually have not seen them like that, but I've seen them in many different ways. The light, yes, but I haven't seen them with clothing on top of light. I actually have not ever seen that. But I've also seen them as like blue light too. But I've more so seen the Arcturians. The Pleiadians is very cerebral for me. And it's very like palpable and potent, where it's a full trance. I'm like, nope, they're here. Yes. And I like will experience it differently, or I can call them in or like channel a message directly from them. But it's very cerebral for me with them. But I've experienced 2 experiences with them, and it was bodies of light both times. I don't know. That's a cool depiction though.
So once I had a dream that I saw this like alien being, and it was like blue and it looked like an insect. Like it was very tall and it had like insect like arms. And I've heard that this is how the Arcturians show up.
Yeah, I think we connect it to being like insect-like because they have like bigger eyes, yeah, and like the arms are like more skinny, and like the heads are bigger, and like the bodies like kind of like go in more slender.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are the Arcturians. Those, yeah. Those are like more like alien-looking beings, like
it was definitely alien-looking. Yeah. So how does someone know which, because there's also the Sirius galaxy. What is that vibration like?
Yeah, that's been like kind of vibration for me too, as opposed to like I've connected a little bit less with Sirius. I think more so in the form of like they'll connect with me through dolphins. Dolphins are very Sirian as well as very Pleiadian as well.
Oh, I love dolphins.
But yeah, they're very Pleiadian. It's said that dolphins are literally like Pleiadian and Sirian incarnates.
Oh, wow.
Like they're actual incarnates of like those beings that didn't shift to the lower vibration of human.
Well, then I'm a freaking Pleiadian Syrian if that's what a dolphin is. Because I just see dolphins, but I've always resonated with like my mermaid Lemurian past lives when I think of dolphins.
Yeah, exactly. And see, that's the thing, is we can be stranded from many different like star races and star systems. And that's what I personally resonate with, because I believe that we remember these different aspects and parts of ourselves as we continue to evolve and as we grow and open up our perception. We can perceive new information and thus experience new forms of vibration and new realities. So new guides come in at different times. So I believe that we honestly have like a lot of it, all of it. But again, like there are some people who are like, no, it's only this and it's only ever been and it only ever will be. So yeah, it can be many things.
And I think that different times of our lives, like different past lives, ancestors, guides have codes for us. Like we'll go through a phase that we're like all about one thing, and then it'll be that will like run itself dry, and then it's about something totally else. Like this time last year was right before the mystical beings crazily came in for me, and it was like showing up for me, right? It was like last January, like left and right. And I was like so resonating with like being a mermaid again. And then I was that for a couple months. And then like Dharma kind of took over. And now it's like very divine feminine and Tantra. And it's like allowing yourself to ride those waves because you're needed in different points in time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think that that's what's so important to know is that like it is necessary to have different like energies and guides come in and consider different options if that is what is real for you and if that's coming through for you, and to not be rigid and confine yourself to any one way because you fear being perceived in any other way or what others will think of you or that you're changing, or because really like yeah, there's so much magic and divinity awaiting in the aspects of ourselves that we often fear exploring.
So true. And I think also probably astrologically has a lot to do with it too. You know, being in Western astrology and earth sign, Capricorn, I resonate a lot with earth based wisdoms, Ayurveda, like Tantra. These are all super earthy, whereas you're a Scorpio and that's like very like in the darkness, like outer space. And Stephen is also, my husband is also a Scorpio. So I feel like astrologically it's really connected too.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, real talk. The product I'm about to tell you about is literally the best thing I've ever put into my mouth. And that is saying a lot. And this is Organifi's Gold. So essentially it is the hot chocolate of your dreams with none of the sugar and all of the turmeric and reishi with a touch of ginger as well. It is delicious on its own, just with water. When I was on my Panchakarma and I couldn't have any sugar or chocolate, anything like that, I brought my Organifi Gold with me. Panchakarma approved, and all I needed was hot water, and it was the perfect, just sweet, soothing, desserty taste that I so deeply crave after meals. And it makes me feel so calm, so restorative. It is my optimal nighttime tonic. And literally, I've gotten all my friends on it, and I'm pinching myself that they are my podcast sponsors because even if they weren't, I would still be telling everyone about it. So head over to Organifi.com and use coupon code Sahara for 20% off. That is Organifi, ORGANIFI.com. Use coupon code Sahara for 20% off your gold.
Yeah, astrology, like I was saying, I feel like even if there was like, oh, like that's not the right place of the constellations, or that's not the right, like this or story or something, there is like such a significant general concept and knowing and awareness and energy that has been imprinted into astrology that I feel like it does hold significant influence. And really like that is kind of what it does, is it imprints, it holds these imprints of energy. So when we are born and that energy is like present and being amplified by the sun and like the current theme for our current construct of reality, it plays a major part in how we are and what we're attracted to and what resonates with us. And it's so connected.
Yes. And I think we find different layers of truth to, you know, different systems, right? Like a lot of people listen to the podcast on Vedic astrology. They're like, so is everything that I've heard about in Western astrology like incorrect? And it's like, no, it's just a different view.
Different
like
time,
you can look at the
timeline.
different timeline. And, you know, I really resonate with both of them. You know, I find truths in both of them, and I resonate with my human design, but it's just showing me different layers of myself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It was so interesting actually. For me, the Vedic astrology was really representative of like an older version of myself almost, but it did really resonate where I was like, whoa, no, I could totally see that version of me. But like the Western astrology was like, but this is who I like really am. And I think that if I this is just a thing, I think that if I were born like on the Vedic lands, that like in that area where that's like the construct of the reality, I feel like it would resonate more. But because I was born here on these lands, on the Western lands, the Western astrology resonates more.
Yeah,
I think
I
it has
know a
something
lot
to
of
do with
people.
like the imprints, the energy imprints.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that same way because in India, all you know is Vedic astrology. So you're going to resonate with that more. I think also
Mm-hmm.
because we've been reading, these horoscopes our entire lives, we probably begin to activate those parts of us that are continually being told. Like if you're
Totally.
always told like, oh, you're like a secretive person, like that element of you is going to be activated. Or if you're always told you're sexual or ambitious or whatever, like we have all of those sides to us. We'll just emphasize that part of us. Yeah, I feel like maybe my Vedic astrology resonates more because one, I'm half like Indian, my heritage. And then also I think because I just never really resonated with being a Capricorn growing up because again, I was just never like structured and organized and I wasn't like that. So I was always like, oh, this is bullshit until like 2 years ago when I did the
Wow.
session with Danielle Page, who's Western astrology, but she's just really amazing at what she does. And I was like, okay, I see some truth to this. And working with an astrologer is so much different than just like reading about your horoscope. So I think I didn't let that inform me of who I was because I didn't believe in
Mm.
it.
Yes. Wow. Wow. And like we have the ability to do that. Beautiful
Yeah.
example of free will. It can override divine purpose.
And I think from the like grandest level, it's like we're all of the things. Like we're all of the science, we are all of the doshas. Like we spend so much time on trying to figure out our personalities when our personalities are not even fixed. They are fluid. They are constructs. You could really like the
Yes.
construct, but it's still a fucking construct.
Right. Exactly. And it's going to alter and shift depending on like the different energies that are present and what is met into your reality. So yeah, it's like hilarious. These like constructs that we are just like upkeeping and like
Yeah. And it's like, I don't
life.
want to get to that point where I'm like no personality, right? Like total
Oh,
Vedanta
oh, oh.
non-duality, which is the highest level. It's like total oneness. There's no
So
separation
true.
between me and you. Well, from like, that perspective, if we're really looking at the grandest view, there's no separation. We are all one, right? Like that's what
Right.
a lot of people experience in plant medicine, et cetera. And a lot of people like live their lives from that viewpoint. But for me, it's not at this point of my life how I want to live because I enjoy some duality. I enjoy the play and the contrast and like the humanness of it all. I think it's also the feminine nature wants to be in the earth, whereas the masculine nature wants to be like observant of it. But we just have to be
Mm-hmm.
aware that both sides exist. Like we can get really into all the archetypes and all the things. And we also have to know that like from the deepest soul level, there's no difference between you, I, a murderer, anyone. We really are all one soul.
Yes, yes. See, that's I think what is like one of the biggest like misconceptions about that whole concept of like we are one, because then that gets into this realm of like having a lack of boundaries, not
Mm-hmm.
having self-awareness, and not supporting like individuality and like how one is, if one is feeling separate from others. And I feel like the misconception is that like we are one means that like there is no other, but actually like what is one? So like we are one human, like we're one body. So what does one body have inside of it? It has like negative and positive ions. It has like probiotics, prebiotics. It has like positive bacteria, negative bacteria. It has like, there's so many dual aspects just of the one being. And even source itself, like source is not just light. Source is essentially like it's created duality, and that's like the concept in which we exist in here. So the concept of being one as it exists in reality right now is that duality. And it doesn't have to be duality being opposing forces. It can more so be like this magnetism, like magnetism and repulsion, essentially, where it's more of like a dance, as you say, like it's more of like a flow.
So true. And I think that definitely, like, I've seen both sides of people using the oneness to spiritually bypass, to like be like, oh,
Right.
like your feelings are not valid, like we are one. And then I also see,
Right.
like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But then I also see the other side of like us getting so caught into like, is this appropriation? Are we allowed to see this? And it's like we're so
Right.
separated that like we're only seeing from our earthly suits. So again, it's this divine balance.
Right. Which is, again, duality in itself, where it's even the concept of it is dual.
Absolutely. It's hilarious. And as we close this up, I'd love to ask you just a light question. Do you believe that there is evil, or do you believe that it's just further away from the light? Just a light question. You're thinking
Oh, thank you. Such a light question. Yeah, I actually think that it is exactly both, because I believe that essentially, yeah, like darkness is the absence of light. Light is information. Light is knowing. Darkness is ignorance. It is lack of knowing. It is the hidden. It is the unseen. And that can, I feel like there's duality even within the light and even within the dark. Like there's duality within them both even. So like that can be manifested as evil, but it could also just be manifested as casual. Like just, it's just further away from the light. But it could also, if like imprinted specifically, it's like all intention, it's all expression, it's all like, it's, yeah, based on how it actually is being expressed. It could just be casual. It could be evil.
Yes, there is duality in it all. Yeah, because, I used to be really of the proponent of like, there is no evil, there is no darkness. It's just further away from the light. Like, there is no devil, like, there's nothing
Right.
evil. And in a way, like, I still really do resonate with that. But, just in this world, like, the more you see, you're like, there's some
Right.
darkness.
No,
Like,
no, there's
where
some
is it?
like dark ass shit. No, no, no. I totally know what you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
no, no, like that's what I'm saying though, is like, I think that like there is like a level of it just being an absence of light. But I think that like because of intention and creation, people have created evil. So that does exist. But like, was that the natural concept of things? Like, I feel like essentially originally darkness was just the absence of light. But like with everything just in general, I feel like it's been imprinted and created as such, as evil. So like it does. Yeah.
So true. I mean, I know from a shamanic perspective, they really see this like darkness as its own entity that essentially like beholds people. It takes over them. And because of that, a lot of us are like reporting to the darkness. We're like living in the darkness. It's something that exists in all of us. But it's like, did you see that movie with Oprah from a couple of years ago, that like A Wrinkle in Time? Did you watch that?
No, I've seen like
It's
5
really
movies.
good. Like anyone
Oh, that's good
anyone
to know.
listening, like actually watch this movie. And
Okay.
basically it's about like these kids, and they're like exploring this really cool world, but there's this dark force, and this dark force keeps like turning all of the lightness like evil. And basically it is showing
Whoa.
like in our society, like we have this beautiful earth, like it was heaven before, but this darkness is growing and growing, and it's making us more fearful of school shootings and violence and all of these things happening, that's making us turn against each other. And then the more we turn against each other, the more this darkness is fed. So the darkness is there, but our fear of the darkness is what is further fueling it.
Exactly. That's
Yes.
exactly it. Yes.
Yes.
It's like it wasn't it originally, but like it's been perpetuated as such.
It's like the boogie monster, right? Like the more you're afraid of it, like the stronger he gets.
Yeah, fully.
But at the same time, it's like, I also believe fear serves us in some ways. Like there are things that I've been afraid of that were my body telling me like, don't go there. Like that's not serving you. And it has kept me from danger. Like if you truly were fearless, like I think you would be like, those people who are like, I'm fearless. And there's like a little bit of crazy in their eyes. Like we have to have fears. It puts us in check a little bit, right? Like a dog, like you flinch and it has a level of fear because it knows the fragility of its life. And we are that way as humans. But I think and it's no one's fault, it's a response, but we've responded to it so much that we're automated by the fear.
Yeah. And like exactly, like just utilizing all like with intention in that space. Cause like, yeah, fear can be a powerful thing. And even like darkness can propel you more towards the light. There's such a level of like needing to experience the darkness so that it can really get you clear on your stance on like what you resonate with and propel you towards the light. So yeah, just like that little level of fear is necessary, like that little like level of seeing the darkness or like having that resistance towards the darkness can help to catapult you into the light.
And I think even the darkness doesn't know it's darkness. Like we've all done things out of darkness, not knowing it. In fact, what we do is we paint the picture of that other person as being the darkness. Like, oh, this person did something wrong, so I'm going to get them back, or I'm going to put them in their place, or I'm going to expose them or judge them, or whatever it is we do. Like, I think even a murderer at that time said, I was protecting myself. I was standing up for myself. Like very few people, there's the jokers of the world out there, but very few people want to be acting of darkness. We're just doing it because it's trying to protect us from what we believe is further darkness.
Right. Yes. And it's like out of wounding, out of hate, or out of hurt, out of like pain. That's where the hate comes from.
Yeah, and then that hate is just coming from fear, which is coming from like feeling insignificant, right? Like, why are we so afraid of the Mexicans coming? Because we are genuinely afraid that they will take our jobs and we will be left homeless. Like, that's actually why we hate.
Oh my God.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's all an illusion.
It literally is. Like, yeah, I feel like it's necessary to like be able to see all of this and like knowing, wow, and I have a choice as to like what perception I choose to feed out of what I choose to believe. And like in knowing that all of this is an option, there are multiple different realities, there are different times, like I'm going to feel different ways, I'm going to be called towards different things. Like it's really just about like accepting what is and supporting and loving yourself, and thus being able to overflow more love and support all that you experience and all in your environment and result.
Love that. So what is something right now, just being totally vulnerable and honest, that you are afraid of, a fear that you have that you're working through?
I feel like I've really been needing to, it's a hilarious concept because I've always been one to be like the best at chilling, and like I've mastered the chill in a way where I like can just chill. I have this like aspect of me that imagines me just like blazing in a hammock on the beach, and that's me eternally on an island. But I've been finding it so hard to like not be productive at this time, and I'm feeling like it's at a time where like even today, like my body is so tired. I've just been sleeping a whole bunch. I was like laying down before we did this, but like my mind wants to create and to like has a lot of energy moving, but because my body is like wanting to rest and it's like, hey, you've been traveling around the world, you've been doing a lot for your whole life, you should probably rest for a little bit. I'm like observing this jumble of energy. So it's created. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm absolutely just resting. Like this energy is infinite. Like I'll just rest and it'll come through in divine timing and manifest in that divine timing. And it's just revealed this fear that has recently like, surfaced. I don't know if it is like something that I had when I was younger, or like it feels pretty new, to be honest, but it's like this fear of if I like stop and take a break, then like I'll lose track on my projects, on my creations and things. So it's been like, I actually in the past 2 weeks, because this has been like a legit thing for me, but in the past 2 weeks I've been able to like literally just chill, and it's been way like smoother. But yeah, it's an interesting fear because it's not true, and I see how like invalid it is and how it is a true illusion from the ego. But like that is, and honestly, I think that it's extra imprinted because of the energies of the collective and like the transition that we're in and what we're supposed to be learning right now. And yeah, it's like extra intense right now. So I know that it's like for me to learn how to transmute the fear and then definitely share on it. But it's so interesting how persuasive they are, where like it's tried to like manifest in like, it first came through the mind and it was like, wait, you're hilarious, I'm not even considering you. And then it was like, okay, I'm going to come through kind of emotionally, and I'm going to come through the body kind of, and like make you feel like you need to get up when you're actually tired, and like things like that. So yeah, fears are real, but they're also illusions.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I asked you because I think a lot of people like listen to this podcast. They're like, oh, Heather and Sahara have it all figured out. And it's like, no, we're like constantly processing on voice notes to each other.
Goddess,
like,
yes.
today I had this dream and this. So I want to share that we have tons of fears that we're working through all the time, and we probably always will. And that's the point of it. So thank you for sharing. And my fear is very similar to that. Like, I feel like, but it's come from that a kind of the opposite spectrum of I have been so good at doing, like master of getting shit done. And I've really prided myself on that. Part of it is I always have been someone like that. And then part of it was I've been positively conditioned, like, oh, we love you if you get good grades, essentially, you know? And then being able to like get into a good college and get all of these like accolades that society deems important, that I deem important, by being the person who could like pull an all-nighter at the library and go to class the next day and like remember everything in the textbook. So part of it is my gift. Like I have a very strong mind. Like in astrology, it's like at the mastermind level. But what is at the proficient level is like my ability to tune into emotionally how I feel at that time. So I'll be like, okay, I need to get this done, and I'll go get it done. And I will completely ignore. I don't even know if I'm hungry. I don't even know if I'm tired. I don't even know what's happening. All I'm thinking about is I need to get this done. It's like this like Durga drive in me. And again, it's helped me a lot. It's helped me write 4 books.
Yeah, it's powerful.
But
people are like, wait, I wish I had that.
But at the same time, like I realized like yesterday, I was like, okay, I'm going to read a book for 30 minutes and not do anything. And it was so hard for me. I was like a crackhead. I was like, I need my phone. I need to write something. I need to do something. Like I couldn't do it. I've trained myself so much, like create more than you consume, keep going, that like it turns into a problem when you can't freaking read a book. You know, you feel like I need to be multitasking. I need to be listening to the audiobook so I can be doing something done at the same time. And so I've been really trying to work through it, but there's also this fear of I don't want to let it go, because I don't want to give up being my successful go-getter self because of all of the way that it's rewarded me. So the other side of me is like, well, why change that? Like just keep rolling with it. If you don't feel tired, just keep going. But it's like I'm so out of touch with it that I don't even know if I'm feeling it until like I try to meditate, and then I like instantly fall asleep because my body is like so exhausted. So I'm working through that.
Yes, yeah, and you're doing an amazing, beautiful job. And yeah, I think that it's just like different times call for different things. So like, yeah, just allowing yourself to rest. And I think that it is like a little bit of the ego fear where it's like, oh my goddess, if I'm not like doing, then I'm not going to be creating as much. But I think that there's a huge element to allowing the energy to like cultivate and build up within and like manifest an even greater potency of project, perhaps like less quantity, higher quality type vibe. And like, yeah, I definitely feel that for you. And it's funny because you recently posted something about this where you're like, I wonder what's going to come through when I'm able to finally sit down and like, yeah, clear that space. And yeah, I think that there's like almost like a fear of that success, of that power that's to come through. Like once you do legit just sit.
Yep. It's just getting to that other side. And like, even my ego brain is like, well, I'm producing quality and quantity. Like
you are. Oh, girl. Like, okay, let me rephrase that. No, it is the highest quality. I think everyone can attest to that right here. But I'm talking about, I don't even know, maybe like actually we all shift to like 5D with one project type vibe, you know, like you never know.
You never know. And it's like the risk is
it's more from them, from me. just so you know.
Right. And the risk is to put a pause when things are going good. Like most of us are like, okay, if things are going good and if I'm in a flow, I should just keep going. But then this like other side of me that's like always wanting to try new things is like, well, what if I just like stop? Like, I feel like, and probably a lot of people listening have like these two sides to themselves. This one side is like, I want to change the world. I want to do all the things. I want to create. Right. And then this other side is like, peace out society. I don't give a fuck. Leave me alone. I want to hang out in a forest or on a beach. Yeah.
Literally.
And it just comes down to like, honestly, I feel like responsible, and it's something I've had my whole life. Same. It's something I incarnated with. Like, I have to help the planet. Yeah. Like it's irresponsible. Like when I was in Bali, I was like, I'm not coming back here. Like, I'm just staying here forever. Like all these people live here. It's super cheap. It has everything I want. But the responsibility of I'm not helping people was just like eating me alive in ecstatic dance. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll come back.
Yeah. I feel like we like feel the familiarity from like a different timeline. Like we definitely have done that before, but it's like not this life. I don't know. There's something in this life. And so, yeah, I think that there's even a concept to like having the different things where it's like, oh, the energies keep streaming through. It's like access to those other realities, those other timelines. And like, yeah, I think it's a lot about like aligning the different like energies within self to align the timelines. But yeah, that's just coming through. We could do a whole podcast on that.
So true. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on this sporadic episode. I absolutely loved it because these are just the kind of things that Heather and I talk about like all the time. So it's fun to just have you guys be listening in so you can see like we're going through it too, and how important it is to have friends that you can talk to about this stuff. So thank you, Heather, for being my friend.
Yes, I'm so grateful and I love you so much. And so, yeah, beautiful that we have this like ability to do this with, just all that we are. So thank you. And so many blessings to all.
And where can listeners connect with you, find your work, listen to your music, which I'm going to play it in the outro right now. So guys, keep listening so you can hear her song.
Oh, I love you. And yeah, a new one is about to come out too. Like perhaps like, when people hear this, which I'm so excited for, you can find me on iTunes and Spotify under Activation, and on Instagram and YouTube, Activation Vibration. It's a vibe. It's a frequency. Tap in.
It is the best. Like, I love listening to light language. We should do a whole podcast on like light language and what you're channeling through, but it's like so vibey. It's so just like you want to dance and get in your body, but it's like in this like super aligned and conscious way, because so many of the songs out there that are vibey have lyrics that are not vibey, so it's the best of both worlds.
Yes, literally. And I was laying in bed recording a light language meditation when you texted me saying, hey, want to do an intuitive podcast? Like literally that's what I was doing. So yeah, casual.
Love it. Well, thank you so much again for being on the podcast.
Yes, I love you so much. Love you. And to everyone, blessings.
Loved having that conversation with Heather. And I do want to give you an update. It's been like a week or 2 weeks since I recorded this, but just an update that it has become a lot easier for me to get into the being state, because I have found or refound a passion of mine that I had back when I lived in India that I have really dived into again, and that is tribal fusion belly dance. So tribal fusion belly dance is a style of belly dance that is influenced by different cultures, essentially. So there's a lot of Indian classical dance, there's even hip hop, pop and lock, there's Balinese temple dances, all sorts of fusion with this baseline of belly dance. And when I was young, I loved to belly dance, again, coming from a Persian background, and at my 16th birthday, belly dance for the whole family, and that's just was a part of my culture. And then I got very into yoga, and it wasn't until I was 23 and I moved to Bali that I went there originally like, I'm just going to do yoga and write my book and like reframe my entire worldview. And then I ended up finding a tribal fusion belly dance teacher, and that was my first exposure to tribal fusion belly dance, and I fell in love with it. But then, moving to LA and being so busy with my dharma and doing all of the things, it didn't really fit into my schedule. I didn't find a teacher that did it. So for the past 5 years, I have not been doing it. So I have refound this passion. I have been practicing every day, and it's such a beautiful way for me to get into that being state, because I'm still kind of I'm dancing, and that allows me to just sit back and relax, because my mind is concentrated on the dance moves, and I'm connected to my body, and it really allows that feminine Shakti life force to move through me. And for me is actually more profound than just sitting and meditating. I think sitting and meditating has its time and place, but when I dance, that's a truly meditative practice for me. And oftentimes, even when I'm sitting in meditation, I'm actually imagining myself temple dancing, which is probably related to a past life. So I do want to share that little update, and know that sometimes there's a certain passion that you can cultivate that allows you to tap into that being state, that flow state. And that's really what we want. It's not just about, oh, I have to sit on the couch and like absolutely do nothing. Like that is also a practice, but it might be for you singing or playing the sound bowls or creating soaps and candles or jewelry, or doing something that still has a level of activity, but you're doing it very mindfully and in a meditative way. And that taps you into that being consciousness. So I just wanted to invite that opportunity for you, because sometimes we put pressure on ourselves. Like, okay, I have to be doing all of the things like career-wise, or totally nothing and like vegging out watching reality TV. And there's just so many states in between that get you into a more calm state, but still allow your senses to be involved. And I think, in fact, we are very sense deprived. We don't use our physical bodies enough. We don't use our senses, touch, smell, sight. We have so many textures of feeling available to us, and sometimes it's doing something that's not in your regular daily state that allows you to tap further into it. So I just want to invite that opportunity for you, and thank you so much again for being here. So if you loved this episode, I would love if you could leave me a review in the iTunes store, and as a free gift, I will share with you the first half of my unreleased book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type. Simply email a screenshot of your review over to Sahara at eatfeelfresh.com. Again, Sahara, Sahara, at eatfeelfresh.com. And I will send you over the first half of my unreleased book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type. Thank you, and namaste.
Ana ekias etasias, kurkisiam, lesiakash, kurkas, dinsia, ama ekasa e ala ekiashas. Fantasia, que fantasia, que Gorkia lahatakia sekatasha Unsia ama atia tekeshisia papasatia shivampasia Amakasia makafala satashia Us Katia.